Hey, brother! Okay, every time I read through Deathly Hallows, there is a line from King's Cross that stands out to me as a bit peculiar. It's when Dumbledore is lamenting his decisions in life and wondering if he at least was a good teacher to his students. I was safer at Hogwarts. I think I was a good teacher. You were the best. But what's interesting to me here is that until year 6, Dumbledore didn't really do much teaching to Harry, did he? And even then, he's just educating about Voldemort's past and laying out the mission Harry has before him. Like, at no point is Dumbledore ever teaching Harry any specific spells or wand-related magic. Don't get me wrong, I mean, all of the information Dumbledore passes to Harry in this regard is absolutely vital to his success, but I never end up thinking of Dumbledore as a professor in the same way that, say, like, McGonagall is a professor, with the classroom and a curriculum in mind. Which is also not to say that Dumbledore never taught classes like that. Like, we know that he was the Transfiguration professor when Tom Riddle was at school, and that he was the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor when Fantastic Beasts was taking place. And to be fair, in the brief interaction we get with his Defense Against the Dark Arts class, he looks like he's doing a great job instructing the students, so, like, I don't doubt he was a good teacher.
He's the best teacher we've got.
Thanks, McLagan.
I'm just always caught off guard by Harry's declaration that Dumbledore was the best teacher, since Harry never received that kind of instruction from Dumbledore. Like, I'm surprised he's not like, Lupin was my best teacher, you know, the guy who taught me my big signature spell, Expecto Patronum! Plus, Lupin's just an all-around great Defense Against the Dark Arts professor. So, yeah. Or heck, I don't know, maybe Snape? Like, yeah, well, no way Harry's ever gonna say Snape was the best teacher, because, you know, he's like mean to the other students. But he does teach Harry his other, arguably more signature spell, Expelliarmus. Okay, true, it was pretty obvious what he was about to do there, not gonna lie. But then there's also the stuff Harry ends up learning from Snape via the Half-Blood Prince and his copy of Advanced Potion Making. Okay, yeah, Sectum Sempra. Not a great lesson. Honestly, the more I've thought about it, while there may not be any fancy or powerful spells or abilities that Dumbledore teaches Harry, there is still quite a bit of less obvious, but still quite powerful and vital bits of magic Dumbledore does pass on to Harry. So today, we're going over everything Dumbledore actually taught Harry. Alright guys, before we begin, I know what you've been thinking for years and years now. Jay, you've got such a great face, when are you gonna slap a mustache on that bad boy? Well, great news, that power is now officially yours because it is May, which means it is Make Jay grow a mustache in May. Here's how it's gonna work. I have agreed to grow a mustache for 1 minute for every new follower I get over on Instagram. And like, if you're already following me, don't worry about like unfollowing and then refollowing. That won't work. I'm gonna start it clean right at 70,000. So I'm giving you a 4,000 minute head start. But I hear you, what if you're already following me on Instagram? Well, first of all, thank you, but also not to worry, you can also head on over to SuperCarlinBrothers.com and just sign up for our email list on there, and that will also generate 1 minute of mustache growth on my face. So there you go, that's 2 free minutes anyone can take advantage of. But if you really want to ramp it up, and this is what I hope you do, there is a link in the description for a fundraiser page that we have with the Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research, and every dollar donated will also equate to 1 minute. You have the entire month of May to accrue minutes, but those minutes can exceed May. That would be really impressive on you guys. So if we get enough minutes for like several months, I will continue to grow it for that entire time. The power is yours. But speaking of power, what does Dumbledore actually teach Harry? Well, let's start in year 1, where much of what Dumbledore is trying to teach Harry is along the lines of there are more powerful things than magic itself. Like, in fact, Hermione nearly says this word for word later on.
Books and cleverness. There are more important things. Friendship and bravery.
In fact, even in Dumbledore's opening speech, he tells the Great Hall that music is a kind of magic far greater than anything they teach at Hogwarts, and sure enough, the largest obstacle preventing Voldemort from stealing the stone all year is Fluffy, the solution to which is not magic, but music.
I shouldn't have told you that.
On that note, most of the obstacles guarding the Philosopher's Stone reinforce this lesson as well. They are magically set up, but not necessarily magically solved. The trapdoor immediately after Fluffy is a test of courage more than anything else. I mean, jump into a literal dark pit not knowing what awaits you below. I mean, the whole obstacle course is kind of a test in courage, but this aspect of it is specifically testing that.
Lucky this plant thing's here, really.
Then for the Devil's Snare, yes, you need to produce fire, for sure, but the real test is, can you remain calm in the face of danger? Then there's the flying keys, which also can't be solved magically. Like, yes, you need to use a magic broom to fly, but it is more your athletic prowess that will actually catch the key. Chess is down to a strategic mind, and the potions are, of course, just logic. Interestingly, the only room that is entirely down to magical ability is the Troll Room, the one set by Voldemort and Quirrell. But, of course, Harry and friends also beat a troll on their own, so.
For sheer dumb luck.
Skill, McGonagall! You think we could just stick a wand up that troll nose? Pfft. I don't think so.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
But speaking of friends, the other big lesson here is friendship and trusting your friends. I mean, I think it is no mistake at all that the challenges set up below the school each favor one of the trio very specifically, like Harry has the keys, Ron the chess, and Hermione the potions. In fact, I would wager that Dumbledore half expected Neville to be part of this group as well, hence the Devil's Snare, but I digress. But it does give him points at the end. Harry, you're supposed to bring Longbottom with you. But I hear what you're saying. Are we saying that Dumbledore intended Harry to do the tasks? Like, weren't they just there to guard the stone and Harry happened to do them? Well, maybe yes and maybe no. I mean, personally, I absolutely think he intended Harry to do them, but it doesn't matter either way because Harry believes Dumbledore intended him to do them. He's a funny man, Dumbledore. I think he sort of wanted to give me a chance. I think he knows more or less everything that goes on here, you know? I reckon he had a pretty good idea we were going to try, and instead of stopping us, he just taught us enough to help. I don't think it was an accident he let me find out how the mirror worked. Ah, and speaking of the mirror, that's a big old lesson in the power of selflessness. AKA, only someone willing to put themselves in harm's way to prevent others from coming to harm could get it. And yeah, that does come up again later on in a pretty big way, but we'll get to that. Although, on Avada Kedavra, Dumbledore also teaches Harry about how he survived the attack on the night his parents died and the immeasurable power of love. And what's interesting here is that while, yes, the intangible concept and raw emotion of love is powerful, there is a genuine, observable, magical effect in the form of stopping death. And this pattern comes up a lot. Moving on into Harry's second year, Dumbledore has one pretty clear lesson in mind and another that he's just sort of able to take advantage of given what's happening at school. The main thing he's teaching Harry this year is humility. I mean, Harry, who's already famous, is now coming off of round 2 of defeating Voldemort and winning the House Cup for Gryffindor, and it's easy to see how all of that might go to his 12-year-old head. Dumbledore's lesson is the hiring of Lockhart to show Harry exactly how not to handle fame. It is a lesson he's teaching from afar, and it largely relies on Lockhart's own arrogance and self-importance to get as close to Harry as possible as a means to further his own fame, but turns out he can pretty handily rely on that, and it works. Harry despises everything about how Lockhart is, and moving forward, never uses his fame for anything, and instead downplays his own accomplishments as often as possible.
But I am the chosen one.
That's movie only. But take, for example, when they're forming Dumbledore's army. Harry keeps trying to insist all of his feats were mostly luck or because he had help, but it's this humility that ultimately wins everyone over and gets them to join. The other big year 2 lesson is loyalty, and this one is very on the crooked nose as Dumbledore is being escorted away from Hogwarts. You will find that I will only truly have left this school when none here are loyal to me. You will also find that help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it. Now, when Dumbledore says this line, it's a little bit cryptic and not clear how Harry could or would implement it, since the 2 people he would probably go to for help are actively being removed from the school.
If anybody was looking for some stuff, then all they'd have to do would be to follow the spiders.
But this lesson comes in major in the chamber when Tom Riddle claims that even just the memory of himself has driven Dumbledore from the school, and Harry instinctively replies, "He's not as gone as you might think." And the effect is immediate, because moments later, Fawkes swoops into the chamber carrying the Sorting Hat and blinds the basilisk. Harry doesn't know how or why this works in the moment, but Dumbledore later explains, "You must have shown me real loyalty down in the chamber. Nothing but that could have called Fawkes to you." But you see what I mean? Harry doesn't perform some kind of crazy spell here. He just does what Dumbledore says, like remain loyal, and there is a physical, magical thing that does happen. But what's crazy about this one is that the lesson isn't just about loyalty in general, it's about loyalty specifically to Dumbledore, which, true, might seem kind of selfish on his part. But remember, at this point, only Dumbledore knows the entire prophecy. Dumbledore can at least trust in his own goal of defeating Voldemort, and he is the only one who knows that Harry must do it, and he's experienced enough to know that others are going to try to win Harry's loyalty, and it is paramount that they don't.
When you can join me and live.
Never!
And Dumbledore is correct. In fact, if you fast forward to Half-Blood Prince, Scrimgeour is making the exact request of Harry to join forces with the Ministry, and Harry's response? He will only be gone from the school when none here are loyal to him. Moving on to Prisoner, the focus moves on to handling prejudice, which, to be fair, he dealt with a lot in Chamber as well, with the whole, enemies of the air beware thing. But in Prisoner, Dumbledore is much more intentional about it by hiring Remus Lupin, all-around great guy, former best friends of James Potter, and werewolf. And what's really interesting here is that obviously nobody is supposed to know that Lupin is a werewolf at all, but Dumbledore seems to be following his own advice and trusting that Snape's hatred of Lupin and Hermione's cleverness will force it to the surface. Now, I'm not sure how much Harry really needed to learn this lesson at this point, as he's already come face to face with, like Hagrid, the half-giant, and Dobby, the house elf, and the centaurs, and one of his best friends is Muggleborn. But Lupin is a little different because he does transform into an uncontrollable monster, and even this does nothing to affect Harry's opinion of him, which really is saying something when you consider that even Lupin looks down upon himself for this. And it really is a very powerful lesson to learn because it's pretty much the antithesis of everything Voldemort stands for. His entire platform is that pure-blood wizards are truly the superior race, and anything less than that has no guaranteed place in his society. But it's not just Harry's open-mindedness to those who align with his views either, it's also how he treats the opposition, which is to say, with mercy. As much as Lupin or Sirius could have at moments been seen as dangerous throughout this year, it's actually Peter who poses the greatest risk. Not only was he a traitor in Harry's own past, but will also be integral to Voldemort's return to power in the future. But despite all that, Harry shows him mercy. And again, just like overcoming Voldemort's penchant for prejudice, this mercy reflects that of Voldemort's ruthlessness. And once more, it is an act that isn't just noble in the moment, but has a magical outcome later on, something Dumbledore even predicts and instructs Harry about soon after. Pettigrew owes his life to you. You have sent Voldemort a deputy who is in your debt. When one wizard saves another wizard's life, it creates a certain bond between them, and I am much mistaken if Voldemort wants his servant in the debt of Harry Potter. Obviously, this comes to pass when Peter momentarily hesitates to kill Harry at Malfoy Manor. Harry's mercy pays off, and Voldemort's ruthlessness kicks in, and Wormtail pays the ultimate price. More than anything, what Dumbledore is truly teaching Harry from year to year is that being a great wizard has far less to do with your magical abilities and far more to do with who you are as a person. And by the time you get to Deathly Hallows and Dumbledore is no longer around, you can really start to see all of the payoffs from his lessons. When faced with retrieving the Sword of Gryffindor from the forest pool, Harry knows it must be obtained under conditions of valor or else it won't work properly. Then, when Ron rescues the sword instead, Harry understands perfectly that it must be Ron who destroys the locket, not him. No, you should do it. Me? Said Ron, looking shocked. Why? Because you got the sword out of the pool. I think it's supposed to be you. He was not being kind or generous. As certain as he had known that the doe was benign, he knew that Ron had to be the one to wield the sword. Dumbledore had at least taught Harry something about certain kinds of magic, of the incalculable power of certain acts. When Lupin shows up and tries to abandon his family to join the trio, Harry scolds him for his lack of loyalty and courage, and ultimately kind of like saves Lupin and Tonks's marriage. When Harry gives Dobby an honest and unmagical burial, it demonstrates his belief that all beings are equal, and it is the key thing that convinces Griphook to help them rob Gringotts. When Ron leaves Harry and Hermione, it is their unbreakable friendship that allows him to hear them through the Deluminator and return to them. And of course, at the very end, Harry selflessly walks into the forest, determined to die for those he loves, and sacrifices himself. It's his ultimate act of non-magic, which allows him to come back to life. Of course, in doing so, he ends up casting sacrificial protection on everyone at Hogwarts, preventing Voldemort's spells from holding them. What's amazing about each and every one of these instances is that Dumbledore's guidance doesn't take the form you'd typically expect, which is to be taught what to do before you actually have to do it. Instead, it is so often the opposite, affirming within Harry after he's made the correct decisions. Only true selflessness could have retrieved the stone from the mirror. Only true loyalty could have summoned Fawkes to you. That act of mercy to let Peter live, that was the correct thing to do. And finally, in King's Cross, he dots all the I's and crosses all the T's. That which Voldemort does not value, he takes no trouble to comprehend. Of house elves and children's tales, of love, loyalty, and innocence, Voldemort knows and understands nothing. Nothing. That they have power beyond his own, a power beyond the reach of any magic, is a truth he has never grasped. Dumbledore doesn't teach through spells and magic. He teaches through kindness and affirmation. I don't know, I guess maybe out here in the real world as well, there's just something kind of magical about emphasizing someone's strengths rather than just critiquing all their faults. And that is what Dumbledore really taught Harry. Guys, don't forget, you can make me grow a mustache for 1 minute for every new follower I get on Instagram and every new email newsletter sign up we get, but most importantly, for every $1 donated to the Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research, link in the description down below. If you want to see some more Harry Potter action from us, and more specifically like the very granular things Dumbledore is pulling the strings on each year in Harry's life, you can check out this video right here called Dumbledore's Big Plan. It makes you see the whole story in a different light. If you haven't seen it, please go check it out. But otherwise, until next time, Ben, I will see you in another life, brother.